I think books were really my ticket to getting to know how to be an American kid. I had very Vietnamese parents, right? Like, they're here, they're working, they're not tuned into pop culture and the things that we might be talking to our kids about these days. And so I just read all the books, like Beverly Cleary, Roald Dahl, Judy Blume, Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley Twins, like Encyclopedia Brown, like all the books, right? So to me, I think it was always a dream to write a book, but about what and when? And so when it was proposed to me that actually your story, going from boat baby refugee to where you are now at a national news network, doing the kind of work you're doing in public service as a journalist, that's a fascinating story. And I thought, yeah, actually, this is a great way to pay tribute to my parents.
Hi, everyone. How's everyone doing? Yeah, good. Good to see some familiar faces and some new faces. Great to see everyone. My name is Raj Mathai with NBC Bay Area. I'm glad you all are here tonight because this is going to be really fun and really special. It's my pleasure tonight to introduce our guest who I've been associated with the Commonwealth Club for a few years now, and we've had some wonderful guests, of course, but this one stands out to me personally for a few reasons. Just a former colleague of mine here at NBC Local. I think of Vicky as almost a sister in the industry and a friend. And I've seen just part of her story in real time, and it's been eye-opening for me to read this book and see her story in print, and it's so rewarding to see this. Her business card or LinkedIn will tell you she's the senior consumer investigative correspondent for NBC News. She also anchors at NBC News Daily, and of course has just written this book, Boat Baby, which is I laughed a few times actually throughout this book, which was great. We encourage you to pick up a copy of Vicky's book right outside the doors. Or at a local bookstore if you're watching us online tonight. And if you could like to support the club's effort in making everything, you can always go onto the website to support this club. Vicky has been an amazing force of nature. In any newsroom, you can go to any newsroom she's worked in, and they will all tell you the same thing. She's driven, she's passionate, and she's a force of nature. You can Google all that stuff. She's very Googleable, but here's one thing you cannot Google. Vicky Nguyen is the second fastest walker in this country, maybe the world. I am the fastest walker in this world, so I love her because of that. So on stage, you're going to have the two fastest walkers in America. With that said, let's bring out, ladies and gentlemen, to the Commonwealth Club, Vicky Nguyen.
Hi. Oh my God, I'm walking slow today because I'm in heels. But that is a funny way of introducing me and very true and accurate, as I would expect from none other than Raj Mathai.
Nice to see you.
I am so delighted to start my book tour here with you because just so folks know, Raj would always say, just win, baby, just win, baby. And that was just his nickname for me. And he'd see me in the newsroom, just win, baby. And I never knew that was actually the Raiders coach catchphrase. I didn't know that for quite some time.
It was.
But it makes sense because Raj started in sports. And he actually gave me one of my first big breaks at NBC Bay Area and introduced me to a whole new audience when I was there, which was Sports Sunday.
Yeah, you did some guest appearances for us on a weekly basis.
Yes, that's right. And you didn't have to do that, but you saw me and you thought, you know what? Why don't we give you a shot? And that was so kind and so emblematic of who Raj is. He sees people, he makes them feel seen, and then when he can give them a hand up, which is often, he does it. So I'm so happy to be here with you.
This is my interview. I need to flatter you. My goodness. We will go through some of this. Born in Vietnam, of course, and it's fabulous just what you've written about. And there's so much texture into the early years, which is great, which I didn't know, and perhaps many people in this room didn't know. On your way from Vietnam, you stopped in Malaysia, 10 months at the refugee camp there, waiting sponsorship in the United States. And then here you grew up in many towns, Eugene, Oregon, Reno, San Jose, and Santa Rosa. And this is so cool. You're back home.
Yes.
You literally went to school and college down the road at USF and were valedictorian. Are you a New Yorker now, or are you still a Bay Area gal?
This month marks 6 years of living in New York proper for me. The time has flown by. I will always be a California and Bay Area girl at heart.
Oh,
No
that's
question
great.
about that. West Coast is the best coast for sure. And they talk a lot about New York food, but I will say I think the cuisine out here is just far more delicious, diverse, and affordable.
What'd you
That's
do
just my
last
hot take.
night? Were you in town, or tonight you're kind of back home, get to have some Vietnamese food, or wherever you're gonna have?
I already had my Vietnamese food.
You did, of course.
I had my vermicelli bowl with tofu and fish sauce, but I brushed my teeth, so we're good. Because fish sauce prices are going up. These tariffs, these 46% tariffs on the stuff coming out of Vietnam, I'm worried. I'm not hoarding, but I'm just saying, I'm keeping my eyes on it.
So you woke up in New York today, got on a flight, and got here right now.
Yes, indeed. Because last night I was actually on Nightly News with a really important and fascinating story. 3 moms from Maine reached out to me from watching me on Today Show, knowing I'm a mom, and they wanted to tell me this crazy story about how their children had been given melatonin gummies at their daycare without their knowledge or their consent. And apparently, in a lot of states, it isn't illegal to give a child a melatonin supplement to make them sleepy, but what that does violate is if you don't have parent permission. It's like a licensing violation.
Sure.
So it was an important story. I think it will create a lot of conversations for parents who have kids in daycare. But no, so that's what I was doing last night. Then I had to hop on a plane and switch gears to Boat Baby, but I'm so happy to be here to talk about this today.
Well, it's really great to see you. As I was reading, and I read this a few weeks ago now, 3 kids, a wonderful husband
Yes.
who's got a great career of his own, a career of your own, of course. Why write this? What was the actual motivation to say, you know what, I'm going to come home after an exhausting day and pound it out on the laptop?
I read a lot as a kid, Raj. Growing up Asian in America, I think books were really my ticket to getting to know how to be an American kid. I had very Vietnamese parents, right? Like they're here, they're working, they're not tuned into pop culture and the things that we might be talking to our kids about these days. And so I just read all the books like Beverly Cleary, Roald Dahl, Judy Blume, Babysitter's Club, Sweet Valley Twins, like Encyclopedia Brown, like all the books, right? So to me, I think it was always a dream to write a book, but about what and when. And so when it was proposed to me that actually your story going from Boat Baby refugee to where you are now at a national news network, doing the kind of work you're doing in public service as a journalist, that's a fascinating story. And I thought, yeah, actually, this is a great way to pay tribute to my parents, to highlight, I think, something that so many millions of parents can relate to, the sacrifices that you will make, the ends of the earth that you will go to provide a better life for your children. And so I was really happy to have the opportunity, while my parents are still alive, to extract some of that information, to get to know who they were before they just were mom and dad to me, and then document this journey of like what it was like for us, moving all around, finding our place in this country, and in one generation, being here with you.
Did it evolve? You sat down initially, said, all right, here are the chapters, here's where we're going to go. As you were writing it, whether it was 3 weeks or 3 years,
Yeah.
did you evolve in this book and say, you know what? This is resonating with me. Let's go this direction now.
It definitely did. I didn't know a lot about this memoir writing process, so I read like everybody's memoir because I think it helps you get into that headspace. And I would say to everyone in the audience, each of you has a story, and each of your parents and your grandparents, if you're lucky enough to still have them with you, they also have fascinating stories about what they did, who they were, the era in which they grew up. And sometimes I think we're so caught up in the day-to-day and what we're, the domino we're knocking down next, we don't take time to reflect. I know in our business, we're really not trained to reflect. It's what's happening now and what's happening next. So take the time. It really isn't that hard. And we have these phones now. We can press record. We can sit down for half an hour with someone we love and just ask them, what did they read when they were a kid? What did they do when they were a kid? What was something challenging they overcame? So yes, as I wrote the book, I didn't try to be like a literary William Shakespeare. I was like, I'm going to do it chronologically because that's how I like to write. Like this happened, then this happened, then this happened. But it did help me in terms of learning more about my family and learning more about myself and why I am the way I am today.
I've asked that question for 20 years now.
What made you who you are?
This is not a Disney book. This is not a Disney story. There's some things in there I was like, wow, she went there talking about your father and his financial troubles and your relationship with him even to this day. What was his reception when he read this? And did you give him a warning like, hey, Dad, here's where I'm going?
I definitely talked to my dad about the kinds of things that I wanted to discuss because I am a really raw and honest person. I think anyone who knows me knows I'm pretty direct. I'm really open. I've just always found that I look for like the deep connection when I meet someone. So I don't like the surface, like, oh, how about those warriors? Like, once you get past that, they're doing great. I love it. Then it's like, what are we talking about? Who are you? Who am I? Like, do we have a connection? So that just naturally was going to be how the book was going to be. And I do think that it's important to acknowledge, like, the same risk-taking behaviors that our parents sometimes have or you need to have to put your family in a fishing boat to try to cross an ocean to get to a whole nother country. Those can be the same risk-taking behaviors that lead to some challenges when you get into this country. So I didn't want to pull punches. It is difficult to talk about those things because my parents are like private, right? And like, this is my memory, my perspective, but everything that happened, I wouldn't change it. It has made me who I am. It taught me how to overcome adversity. And I think it really, sometimes they say like pressure creates diamonds. That added pressure at the beginning of my career of wondering like what was going to happen with my parents financially, and I'm making $26,000 a year in my first job. Is this tenable? When, you see other people who are making big money in their Bay Area fancy jobs, and you're not sure if this is actually going to be the career path that's going to be the most stable for you. It all worked out. And I think what I learned from that is you take it one day at a time, and it's okay if you don't have all of your goals painted out. You don't have it all manifested, the white picket fence, and you know exactly where you're going to go. Being on the Today Show was never on my bingo card. It was never, that was too big for me. I didn't even think that was, that's for other people. But you just do the thing that you're supposed to do. You do it the best of your ability. You take it one day at a time. Life is going to throw challenges at you. But if you just keep moving forward, which is what I learned from my parents, you end up somewhere that you're supposed to be.
Yeah, well, as an immigrant and someone Asian as well, we know our parents are very private. We're all very private. When this came out, though, did you say, hey, Dad, this is where it's going? And what was his reaction? What did he tell you? Or did he say, did you just kind of look at you?
I think we're still there. My mom, I'll say it like this. My mom read the book for everything that she didn't know about me. My dad read the book for everything about himself. And I think that that's the right way for me to summarize it. And I'm very much like my dad. I understand him very well. We are so similar. Born in the year of the horse. I'm becoming him in some ways. Like, my husband's like, when did I marry your dad? And I'm like, I don't know. So I think ultimately, I hope ultimately he sees that this is a story of grit and resilience, and that all of my success is because of the things that they did and the experiences we encountered together as a family, and that we stayed together as a family, because that's not always the way. And my dad to this day helps me with my kids. So does my mom. They're there for me. So hopefully the book does well. And then it's water under the bridge, right? My co-writer, Vicky Bruce, was amazing to work with. She helped me extract a lot of details from my parents that I think they told her in ways that they wouldn't confide to me. But she said, you should tell your dad thank you for giving me such an interesting life to write about.
Sure.
Which is true.
Sure.
It's true.
Where did you do the writing? After work at 30 Rock or at home in the middle of the night? I mean,
mornings. For me, mornings, focus time, and also on these transcontinental flights, because sometimes when you're traveling, that's the best time. You've got 5 hours to yourself. You don't need to get on the Wi-Fi on the plane, and you're just jamming out chapters. And because we write for a living, it's not the writing that is the hardest part. I think it's the organizing the thoughts, the figuring out which chapters and where do you add the dialogue and where do you go deep and where do you just kind of, get to the next chapter.
Sure.
So the writing wasn't actually that hard.
Was it emotional for your parents? You say you talked to them, getting out of Vietnam in the darkness of the night, bribing some of the officers there.
Yes.
When you're asking them to recount this, did they just kind of say it very Asian, like here it is? Or did they stop, pause, and really think about what happened in their own lives? Not yours, theirs too.
It's so interesting because I feel like part of the way that they were able to survive and keep going is they compartmentalized. And I see that in myself too. Sometimes you carry something with you and you can't put it down. And that's just like the weighted vest that you wear, and it makes your muscles stronger because you keep going on your journey, and it just becomes a part of you. So not everything is going to be resolved. Like, not everybody is going to go to therapy and talk about the feelings and work it out. Like, culturally, that's not going to happen with my parents. Generationally, it's not going to happen. But I think for them, because they were so adept, I think, at like, we're going to deal with the pirates in this moment with the pirates. We're going to deal with the police in this moment with the police. And now we're not there anymore. So we don't need to focus on that. That's really how they've like kind of moved through life. And I see that in myself too. You just don't dwell. I mean, maybe there's a lot of unresolved, unprocessed stuff there, probably. But I'm okay. We're doing it. Yeah. But they're not super overly emotional. I've never heard my parents use the word trauma. Like as I'm reading some of the reviews now and people are like, oh my gosh, her family survived these traumatic experiences. I'm like, yes, true. Like that is a very fair description, but they would never look at themselves that way. Like we are trauma survivors or we were victims of pirates. They look at it as like, well, thank goodness the pirates only wanted gold and they didn't throw anybody overboard. We're very lucky. Like they're just very sunny side up about everything. And I think when you go through life with that kind of optimism and resilience, it's like, it reminds me actually of the Holocaust survivors that I've met over the years. And when I read their stories and now they're getting older and older, those people are always smiling. They're like so kind and just looking at like the happy they're here, you know, like they're just in the moment and so joyful. And I just think like there is something about being able to get through some of the most horrific experiences and still be grateful you woke up today and focus on what you have and be great. You know, that to me is like, I wish we could put that in a bottle.
Do you have that trait as well? Because whether you're on television, I used to be here for NBC Local, now at the network level, you have things in your life that's beyond this book that's perhaps not going well. And then how do you say, and the Today Show's the best in the history of television in terms of making it a feel-good, wake up with us, we are family, but not everyone's feeling good all the time.
Yeah.
How do you do that in your TV career?
I'll say in the last 6 years, I definitely hit a career low. That was last year, January 11th, my consumer team, I had like 3 producers, a coordinating producer. They were the team that welcomed me 6 years ago when I first got here. And it was like stepping into a Lamborghini and just shifting gears. They were just amazing. They could operate drones, they could edit, they could design graphics. It's just like a SEAL Team 6 of television producers that I got to work with immediately in getting to the network. They set me up for all of the success I'm enjoying today. But that whole team got eliminated last year in layoffs. And I found out that morning, I was given a call, your team is being sunsetted. And I was like, what does that even mean? What does sunsetting mean? Yeah, like usually I associate that with a positive thing, but in this case it was not. So thankfully they're all amazing. Some of them have gone to work for competitors. They're all doing well. But in that moment and in the months after, there is like a bit of survivor's guilt, right? Because you're just like, well, why wasn't I was part of the consumer team. Like, why didn't they cut everybody? And it was also just thinking like, these are people who have kids in college. These are people who have mortgages. So that was a career low in the sense you just are reminded that nothing's promised. Our business is very volatile. Contracts come and go. And it just made me think, I got to focus on what I can control. I can't fret about all of the other things. I'm going to help as much as I can to like, you know, connect people and get them into new jobs and be like the best possible reference because I can only say glowing things about them. But I was like it was a low in the sense of just like this place you think is a safe, trusted place that you work. It's a business. Yeah. And you are reminded that like real people's lives are affected when business decisions are made. And so I remember having to like really lean on Brian and just like we talked it out a whole lot and like just had to process it. I mean, it was like the same conversation over and over, but I would say that was definitely a career low. And since then, I will say the silver lining of that is it has made me more self-reliant. I have worked with other people across the network I wouldn't have otherwise crossed paths with. And I think the work has been really good and solid. And I'm just happy that everyone is in a new role and growing. Because I think sometimes change is abrupt and it's hard, but it happens for a reason. And now I can see it. But you know, a year ago I wasn't so clear-eyed.
And that goes for a lot of people watching and listening or in this room right now. So many industries are being disrupted.
Right.
And it's happening here in the Bay Area with AI. Mm-hmm. So this is really a canary in the coal mine, like we usually are in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that can relate to that.
Yeah.
And that are going through that, right, what you just described. And
I think what it does force you to do is like strip away what was extra. What are you good at? What can you control? Focus on that. And then that's how I got through it. And it was helpful. But yeah, it was terrible. It was a terrible, terrible time at the network. And I didn't see it coming.
Who are some of the names, 2 or 3 names, in no order or anything, that have helped you in your career? It could be something in your book. You wrote about Thuy Vu, who's one of, I believe, the first Vietnamese American reporter, and she was here in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Matt Goldberg, one of our colleagues who brought you in the investigative unit. Who are some of the names that you look back and say, gosh, that woman or that man or that person really helped me?
Well, for sure. I mean, Roz Plater, who's here tonight, she's a professor at USC now, but she was a KPI. There you are.
Professor, nice to see you.
So Roz actually was one of the people I shadowed when I was an intern at KPIX, Channel 5 here locally. I was still a student at USF, and she was always just super positive, very kind, let me ask a million questions, and really gave me like an in-depth perspective of what it would be like to do that job day after day. My professors are here, actually. Professor Michael Robertson, my first communication professor.
Nice to see you.
And his wife, Edith. And then Professor John Higgins, yes, and his wife, Mary Jane Niles. She was actually Brian's professor. Was it chemistry or biology or? Biology. So clearly, we had really great teachers and mentors along the way. And then at the network, I mean, having Savannah, Hoda, and Craig, I can genuinely say, just as kind and warm and generous as you might imagine them to be if you watch the Today Show regularly. And I've been really grateful to get to work with them. Raj, I mean, you and I have connected from the very beginning. I've always admired the way that you conduct yourself. I get to see, I think that's how you know who someone is, when you see who they are behind the camera or when the lights aren't on them. How do they treat the other people in the newsroom? How do they react when things don't go well? The news is, it's happening all the time. Things don't happen perfectly. People make mistakes. And it is the level of professionalism, the respect that you give to people, not the ones who are up here. It's the ones who are down here. I think that has said a lot about how you conduct yourself as a newsroom leader. And you don't know this, but I definitely took my cues from you.
Very sweet. Thank you for saying that. This is something that perhaps of the entire book, maybe the storyline or the feeling, emotion that stood out to me the most was, because I went through this in many ways, is assimilation.
Yes. And
back in the day, assimilation was a good thing. Hey, you come to America and you assimilate. You be as white as possible or as American as possible.
Yeah.
I did it pretty well.
Yeah.
You did it very well. Is that something, how do you view that term now in 2020, 2025?
It's so interesting because I think about someone, Mindy Kaling actually mentioned this at USF at the Silk Series. And if you don't know about the Silk Series, Naomi Silk is here in the audience. She is one of the benefactors who brings people like Stephen Curry, Trevor Noah, Mindy Kaling, thought leaders, Christy Yamaguchi, Michelle Wee West, to USF. And it is open to the public, but it's also for the benefit of the USF community to listen to people and how did they get where they got and what did they learn, lessons they can share along the way. But Mindy said something that I really appreciated, and it was that her parents never led with identity. They just were never like, we are Indian and we are here now, because that wasn't going to help you. You weren't going to walk into a room and call more attention to the fact you were different or from another country or English wasn't your first language. So for sure, neither did my parents. They never led with that. And then here's me watching that, and then watching pretty much the representation on TV was white and black. It was The Cosby Show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Silver Spoons, Growing Pains, Three's Company. There were no shows really focused on any sort of Asian American families or Asians in general. And the few that we did see were, not portrayed well. So I don't think I really leaned into my identity until much later in life, because we also became journalists. Yeah. So that even further removes you, because you're now in a profession where it isn't about bringing your full self to work. It's about appearing as neutral as you can be, as objective as you can be. The story is never about you, So I think that when we had the pandemic and we saw the rise in anti-Asian racism, and I saw my colleague Dion Lim, who was really out front with a lot of advocacy journalism and just putting herself out there, and getting a lot of attention for the fact that, I think we can all agree we don't want to see elderly people pushed down and attacked in the streets. And it made me feel like, okay, this isn't because we're Asian American that it's wrong. Everybody can see that it's wrong. And we have allies, and it was a safer place to be able to lean in and say, I'm from this community. I can cover this community. People in this community will tell me their stories and trust me. And so my identity became an asset. It became something that I didn't have to mask and that I could not only accept, but also utilize as a tool.
Are you saying you've really embraced this just a few years ago?
I mean, I would say in my 40s, because like even in college, we had like the Vietnamese Student Association and
you had
like
a roommate
the Asian
you
club.
wrote about in your college that you said really helped you.
You would at the time for me, culture and my Vietnamese identity was just that, neutral. It wasn't something to be ashamed of, but it wasn't something that you were necessarily out and celebrating all of the time. And now I think it's very important for me to share that with my kids and to make sure that that's part of their identity. And it's nice because they watch shows like Never Have I Ever and like XO Kitty and To All the Boys I've Loved. For them, they see multiracial people, they see Asian kids, they see everything on television now. And so I'm happy that's actually not a burden for them to bear in any way.
One thing about your parents, it's so much credit to them because in that era, right, coming here from Vietnam or any country, it's usually, hey, who can I date? Who can I marry? And you said that all they said was make sure he takes care of you and is smart. Is that right? Those two things?
Like a nice boy,
not Vietnamese.
Yeah.
And you said black, brown, and they were really cool with that?
They were really cool with that. And that's
that's
much
something
to
that I
their
don't
credit,
hear too often.
Right? And in cultures where often you want people, like, parents want you to marry within your culture, sometimes the marriage is arranged because the families know each other. My parents were very laissez-faire about that. I mean, I think like from the fact that I changed my name when I was like 7 or 8 to Vicky, right? From watching Three's Company, and that was Jack's flight attendant girlfriend's name. I was like, I like her. She's pretty glamorous. I'm gonna take on that name. But the fact that, they were never too worried about it. It was more just like, just say no to drugs, just say no to sex. Like that can come later. It was more about like, that'll come later. We don't care what color or whoever, but it's not happening until you're like 30 years old.
But this is not that common for immigrant parents to say, go ahead and marry or date whoever.
Right, totally.
And if you haven't read the book yet, Vicky's husband is a friend of mine, I'd like to say, a tall white guy. And so it's just like, wow. What do you tell your daughters? What will you tell your daughters when those conversations come up about who to date, who to marry, or how to spend your time?
I actually talk to them about this a lot because I remember reading like this New York Times op-ed about how we don't encourage our kids to find a partner. When parents are surveyed by Pew Research, they're like, yes, 75% of parents like, I want my kids to be financially independent. 80% I want them to be educated. It's focused on all these like external success factors, but when you ask, do you want your children to be happily married? Parents are like, I mean, I guess, like, but it was really
because most
like
parents aren't.
Right? Like maybe that could be it. But they don't prioritize it as something to tell their children about. And the op-ed was really making the case for marriage, and it really made me think it's true. I'm so grateful for my partner. And I tell my girls, I want you to put as much focus into finding a partner that uplifts you, that supports you, because life is a team sport. And those successes, those highs are so much sweeter when you have someone to share them with. And the lows and the tough times, you have such a cushion when there's someone to be with. And so I don't think about like who they're gonna be with. I just tell them you should pursue that the same way you pursue career success or whatever you think that looks like. Make sure you look for good people to surround yourself with in your life, because you only get that one life.
You started dating Brian, I believe, at the age of 16. Your eldest daughter is 16.
Yes.
Does she know that?
This weekend. Well, that's the crazy thing, because like it is rare to date and marry and be with your high school sweetheart for like a bazillion years. Like I don't anticipate nor expect in this tiny town that we live in now that they're going to find the boy that they marry eventually. But yeah, she does know that. And it is weird. And I don't know if you feel this about your kids, Max and Sonia, or Marlo, that social media has changed the dynamics. I remember we would like go to the mall, we would go to the movies in like mixed groups and talk to each other and all of the things. And now kids are like, it's all this, it's so much over the screens. So I worry about like the kinds of relationships they're gonna have and like who are they gonna meet that is like normal.
It is really hard. We've got some great questions here. I'll get to those in a moment. If you have any, continue to write them and bring them up. You shine brightly here at NBC Bay Area, and you just went into these deep dive investigative pieces. And it was great watching you in the newsroom because you would just be walking fast, this way, that way, meeting with this manager, meeting with this editor, meeting with this producer. And I'm just looking around. And remember, I'm still the fastest, but she's still the second fastest. Do you miss those deep dives? Because I know at the network level, it's different.
It's so different.
It's wonderful, but different. Do you miss those camping out with Kevin Nyes, your producer, and waiting for stories like this?
Totally. That's why the melatonin mom story, I got my juices flowing so much because, 1 minute I'm doing anti-aging devices as I did actually, that was also yesterday on the Today Show. So like in the morning, I'm like, I'm, makeup free. It's a story about, do these like lasers work and do these like microcurrent things work? And people want to know. So like they want to know, should I spend $400? So there's those kinds of stories that you're doing that are purely focused on like consumer health and wealth and, personal finance. But then when you get a story, a tip that comes from moms who are really upset about something, and they went to the State House today in Maine, actually, to lobby for this bill that a state senator is going to introduce to at least increase transparency. Because right now in Maine, if a daycare is under investigation, nobody knows about it. The daycare owner knows, but they're under no obligation to tell any other parents that they are being investigated. Wow. That's crazy. So the state senator's like, I think that's nuts. I'm introducing a bill thanks to these moms for, telling me. The moms want this to be a jailable offense. So yes, I miss those meaty stories where you have impact, you change laws, people go to jail. I still get to watch my mentee, Candace Nguyen here, do those stories. She came in after I did and has done an incredible job in the investigative unit. We air some of her stories on my show. But I will say, like, it's never far from my mind, how can I do those stories? It is just a little bit different when you work at the network. Sure. They don't like to follow stories the way we would in local. We would be on something until somebody like cried uncle. But at the network, you hit it and you quit it. Yeah. It's like, so that's tougher.
Culturally, what's the best part of living in New York and the biggest challenge? I won't say the worst part, just the biggest challenge.
Okay, I would say culturally, I do really like New Yorkers. They have such a bad rap. Everyone's like, New Yorkers, they're so rude. I have had people in New York walk me to my subway train because I'm like, I'm sorry, Google Maps says it's the D, but I don't know, am I going to Brooklyn or am I going to China? And like, they're like, oh my God. But people are busy, they're doing things, but when you ask for help, they will help you. They will help you all the way. So I don't know why they get that rap other than they walk fast and they, they're just doing their thing.
Yes, they must love you in Manhattan.
They're very direct. I like that about New Yorkers. You can get into it with anybody about anything right away. So I love that. Because California, like, it's everyone beating around the bush, laid back, and you're like, so how do you really feel? I will say the biggest challenge is the lame one, but like the snow is crazy. Like it's like people say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. And I think they really mean like those little old ladies who are walking through like 4 feet of snow in Manhattan. You're like, you're doing it, lady. Good job. So the weather, just the weather.
What would you change if you had a magic wand for news at the network level?
I would create more of an opportunity for those deep dive investigations because I think people want to see them. I would bring back some of those franchises, like The Fleecing of America. I thought that was a wonderful franchise we used to do on Nightly News. And, Tom Yamas is coming in June. Lester is going to continue doing Dateline. I'm excited for that. And maybe that's something that I think I can try to lobby for because there will be changes inevitably. And
from the audience, this is a great question here. Vicky, what do you feel is the biggest challenge facing journalists today? We could spend an hour on that one, but what do you think?
I think that it's really hard to make a living as a journalist because the work is very important. It's grueling. You work Christmas, you work Thanksgiving, you work weekends, you work mornings, you work nights, you work when you're not working. So I think it is difficult to make a living doing the kind of journalism and having the longevity in this career that you and I have had. We're kind of rare birds. I feel like every couple of months or so, someone's like, I've had 10, 12 years as a journalist. And that's when you're starting to get really good. But that's also when you're starting to want to have kids or wanting to start a family. And people are like, so now I'm going to go make twice as much money and be a consultant or work in PR or do crisis communications. And I don't blame them. And I don't think that they're selling out. I don't think they're going to work for the man. I think that journalism has to find a way to pay people and keep the industry alive and true. And in a way, I think AI is going to help us because people will need to turn to legacy media And legacy media will need to invest in technology that can help us detect what is real and what isn't, because deepfakes are here and they're only getting better. And so when you see Putin doing something or Trump saying something or any other world leader, you need to know, wait, but is NBC News also reporting that? ABC, CNN, like, you can't just see it on Twitter and think that it's real. Look what happened with the stock market just recently. Yeah. Everybody thought that we were getting a break on tariffs, and so the market went up, and that was all false. So I think, and I hope, that people will be driven back to, okay, what are my trusted sources of information? And I need to go to multiple sources. And I hope that because the viewers and the readers will be there, that the companies will find a way to retain talent.
You talk to a lot of people that are young in this industry, and a lot of people look up to you, whether you know them or not. So say you're talking to a 25-year-old young man or a young woman who says, Vicky, tell me, is this the career I should go into? What's your honest answer?
My honest answer is, if you love telling stories, if you are genuinely curious, if you want to make a difference in the world, and you marry someone rich. No, I'm kidding. And you're okay with budgeting, is what I would say. If you're good at budgeting, there is always going to be a place for you, and we need you. Journalism needs you. We need your perspective. We need your hard work. We need your grit. And just know that you're recording that first draft of history, or you're giving a voice truly to people who couldn't get their story out any other way. And I have done that so many times for so many people, and it makes me sleep so soundly at night, because there is nothing more rewarding than helping someone tell their story, and then seeing how that story has a ripple effect in your community and very far beyond your community, now that information can travel so readily. So I would say it's a noble profession. You are definitely pursuing a career in public service, and it is worth it, but it's gonna be hard. And find mentors and find people that can help you, and ask all the questions, and don't worry about being a try-hard. Don't worry about people saying that you're doing too much. You can never do too much as a journalist, because you're going after the truth. And the cool thing is, at the end of every day, you have a story, you have an article, you have a TV, package, you have something to show for your work. It is deeply satisfying and rewarding work.
Yeah, it sure is. Well said. From the audience, we'll go back to this just a bit. How did you go about the actual process of interviewing your parents, and how did they feel about sharing this to the world?
So it came out in bits and pieces, because some of the story I know, right, from growing up a little bit, hearing it here and there. They were never going to sit down and be like, so this is the story of how we, made this decision to come in. They're just not like that, So I had to, very chronologically, it'd be in the kitchen and they're making dinner, or, sometimes I'd be writing and I'd hit a chapter and be like, wait, what exact year was that? And there was a very confusing part, because they would always say that they left in March. And there was this saying, in March, the ocean is so calm, an old lady could cross. It was a Vietnamese saying, and everybody knew this is in March. March was the Vietnamese calendar March. Because I would go back and be like, I thought we left in May. What? And they're like, yeah, it was May. But it was March too. And you're just like, oh my, it'd be those kinds of conversations.
This is
right?
a good question.
So some of it is just fact checking yourself and going back and filling in the blanks. And just asking my dad, I remember asking him as a kid, what were your favorite foods? What did you do after school? And kind of understanding from a very young age, my dad was always a hustler. He was always getting gum wrappers and selling those, and bottle caps, and catching crickets and selling those so that kids would fight with the crickets. I was like, oh, this guy's been a salesman his whole life, So that's where his negotiating skills came from. And then he passed those along to me. So it was really fun, but it had to be done in snapshots. There weren't long drawn out interviews. It was let's talk about this part of your life. Okay,
recording on the phone, on a laptop, or
typing? Just typing. Yes. No recording. But I think having Vicky Bruce, who talked to my parents separately in other ways, she got a lot of the details of the pirate attack and what it was going through the jungle with me as this little baby. And the other detail that they never told me was, I didn't think about, was how do you get an 8-month-old baby to be quiet when you're trying to escape? Babies are loud and snuffly and crying, and I'm sure they drugged me. They never told me that. That was a conveniently left out detail.
Was it the drugs from Maine? The
yeah, right?
The
yeah, it was
gummies?
Before melatonin gummies. Probably something like Benadryl, before Benadryl. It was the hard stuff, probably. But, there you go.
I got a kick out of the March 8th. So is that your mom's birthday, kind of, sort of?
Kind of, sort of. I mean, it's also International Women's Day. So, according to her friend and the lunar calendar and the triangulation, Yes, there's a chapter about how my mom, we really don't know her birthday because she was born and they lived in like kind of just a very rural area, and her dad was like, I'm not trying to go down to the city hall and do all the paperwork. We'll wait till we have a few more kids. And then he would just jot down people's, their birth dates, and then he lost the notebook. So he's at the office like, January 1947, that one. And that's kind of why we don't really know when she was born.
You bounced around growing up here when you got here, from Oregon to Reno, I believe, then to San Jose, and then to Santa Rosa. All part of the journey? Did you appreciate that looking back on it now, or was it difficult, and do you still kind of pay a price for it?
No, I think, I grew up and went to a different school every year from kindergarten to 5th grade, like a different school. It was in Reno, San Jose, Santa Rosa, and then in Santa Rosa, multiple schools. And, it's not fun being the new kid, that's for sure. But I wouldn't have it any other way, because that makes you adapt. You have to learn how to make friends. You have to learn how to deal with the one constant that exists in life, which is change. So when I moved my kids from California to New York, one of my daughters actually was in 3 different schools in 3 years, because she had to go from elementary to middle to like whatever the junior high was, and we moved in the city too. So I feel like you model for your kids too, like how to react. So if I was weepy and freaking out about it, I think she would have been anxious and weepy and freaking out. So it was just like, hey, I moved around a lot as a kid. Like, this is going to help you. You're going to be able to adapt. And they did. And I like, my hat's off to those kids, because they have been on quite an adventure on this whole bi-coastal journey, and they have not ever complained. And the kids in Bronxville, where we live now, are very sweet, like really welcomed our kids. We found carpools, like the parents, everybody is very genuinely kind where we ended up living. But I think moving builds character. I think adversity, when you struggle when you're young, I think it makes you stronger as an adult. So if you have gone through some things, just consider it your armor. Like, that's helped you put some more metal plates on your body that are going to help you in your life.
What do you and your husband do is there a weekend or a night where you say, you know what, kids are staying home, parents, we're going out? Do you go out? Do you go to the countryside? What do you do to unplug and get away? Or do you?
This is so embarrassing.
Chuck E. Cheese? What do you do?
We should do it. All the experts say this is important for a healthy marriage and partnership. You have your date nights and you take the time. I think there's like these rules too, like every 2 weeks you have a date, every 2 months you go away for a weekend, every year you take a week or whatever. That's awesome. For us, we call them date errands.
Oh.
So we will go to Costco together, just the two of us. Or we'll go like to Trader Joe's. We just look for the moments that fit into our lives. Like, I saw this Instagram post yesterday. It was because we have 3 kids who love sports. And I love this whole movement towards women's athletics. Everyone watches women's sports. But 3 kids in 3 sports, like, and each of them doing all the things. The Instagram post was this person walking down the stairs, and they were trying to get around someone who was like salsa dancing in front of them the whole time. And it was like me trying to enjoy my weekend. And then there was an arrow pointing to like my kids' sports schedule. And that is our lives. Like, it is a whole cha-cha to get all around. But it doesn't last forever. Like, one of them just turned 16. They're like 0 to 18, and then you only have so much time with them. So we'll have our date nights later.
Yeah. You're doing something right. You guys have been together for a long time.
Yeah, true.
Another great question from the audience. How do you think an immigrant story is landing in these divided times? What are the haters saying?
This is such a good question. First of all, thank you, audience, because all the questions have been fantastic. This is like the best part of writing a book, is when it's finally out in the world and people have read it, or they've reacted to it, or they have thoughts. So yes. Like, people have asked me, did you plan this? This month marks the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, yes. April 30th, Black Sunday. That is when, Saigon fell, the North Vietnamese took over, communists, that was it. So I did not plan this. My book was supposed to come out like last fall or, summer. And then the publisher was like, well, we do have this election, maybe not the best time. And I was like, great, because it just gives me more time to prepare, and it was so crazy. So now here we are, and it's this 50th anniversary, and this anti-immigration sentiment right now in this country is pretty high. And I didn't know, my daughter actually did a history project talking about how back in during the times that I came over, and many Vietnamese refugees came over, 75 to 92, about 2 million Vietnamese refugees came to America. And that was about a 14% like immigration rate or something at the time. We're down to like under 5% now currently. So I'm really happy it's coming out right now. The timing couldn't be better. I'm happy we're talking about what refugees and immigrants do for this country and what this country's fabric is made of, and what makes this country great is our differing ideologies, cultures, languages, foods, the conflicts that we have. That leads to conversation. That leads to people's perspectives being expanded. It's not comfortable. You know, it's fine if you live in Finland, everybody's like, woo, we're homogenous, we see eye to eye. Great, there's no friction. But out of friction comes great things. This is a country where all the great innovation comes from because we're different. And so I hope that when people read Boat Baby, they are reminded of that. And they see that that's honestly the fabric of America. That is what makes us great. And also they're reminded of the generosity of the families that sponsored immigrants and migrants here. And we saw it in 2021 when Afghan refugees had to flee Afghanistan and the US pulled out after 20 years of war. We did stories on sponsor circles that were forming again and bringing Afghan families here to live. And so it was just so eerily similar. The images were so similar to what happened in 1975. So I'm glad it's coming out now. I hope it adds to the conversation in a positive way.
Yeah, it certainly is, as is evidenced tonight. Question, another good one. You are successful now in this phase. What do you look to your job as to give back, to contribute to the Vietnamese American community? This book is part of that. For
sure. I write about this a little bit because part of the decision making in taking a risk and bringing everybody from California, including my parents, so it was a family of 7 moving West Coast to East Coast, was like, I might totally flame out. Like I might go to the network and be terrible and like it doesn't work out, they don't like me, they don't renew me, whatever. But at least I have to try, because if my name, which is like the Smith of Vietnamese last names, is on a network banner for however long it stays on a network banner, people will see Nguyen, and then, you know, the trans and the does and the lees and the trongs, that matters. And so like for me, taking that chance was so much bigger than me. And honestly, I think that's what took some of the pressure off in a weird way, is I was like, well, I'm doing it for everybody. I'm doing it for the people, the culture. So like, you know, why not? And that is the attitude, right? It's like, why not? My parents were like, why not us? Why not go for this? Like, it's going to be tough. It's going to be dangerous, but why not? Because we want a shot at freedom. We want a shot at education for our daughter. And so there, you know, I went, and I have to say it's been A++. Like, the job is everything I hoped it would be and more. There are very few jobs at the network like mine where I get to cover what I want to cover. I know when I'm traveling, it's very humane, it's planned, and I enjoy traveling. I love going to like all the different states of America and imagining like, could I live in Canton, Ohio? Okay, like what's this like? That's such a privilege, right? To get to meet people and talk to people, and you expand your horizons so much. And I think in all those conversations, never before has it come up so quickly, politics. Like even on the flight here, immediately with the flight attendant, what do you think about what's going on? And you're just like, oh, we know, okay. People want to get into it right away. People want to put you into like this color box, that color box. And I think the way I approach those conversations, and I don't get overwhelmed, is I just say, tell me more. Tell me why you feel that way about that issue. Interesting. And if I have something to share, I'll say, I feel this way about it, and that's why. And I don't expect to convince them in that moment, and I'm not trying to convince them. I'm just hoping that maybe something I said resonates with them a week, a month, a year from now, and they go, oh yeah, that lady, you know, she had a point. Because I think that's how we should converse with each other. We shouldn't immediately retreat to our corners, divide people, label people, and then never speak to them again. That's not how it used to be. And I hope that that's not how it's gonna be.
You do have a really great spot at the network, because what Vicky's saying is the truth. Most network people, they're traveling a lot, and they don't know if it's on a flight tomorrow, on a flight tonight. And so for you to kind of know your schedule is huge.
Yeah. And most days get to be done, you know, after my show and go home, get to see soccer games and lacrosse games and watch races. Like, I'm so happy that this happened for me at this stage, that I came and I already had my kids, that, you know, I'm very fortunate that this job opened when it did. And the way that I learned about it was also very fateful.
Yeah, you got a call from one of our colleagues in Texas, right?
No, New York.
New York, I'm sorry.
Someone I'd met a couple times, Jonathan Dienst. Didn't even know him. He texted me out of the blue and was like, did you hear so-and-so's leaving? You should really apply for that job. And I was like, wow, number one, no. Number two, I Googled it. He had already left like a month ago. I thought, there's no way. Somebody's already in that job. Somebody's agent's already reserved that spot, whatever. But I just reached out to some people I knew at the network and said, hey, I heard so-and-so left. I'd be interested if you want to have any conversations. And that happened to be a year I was going out to New York anyway for like some award ceremony. So then, I get a text in December. I do an interview, 2 days of interviews in January, and I'm working at the network by April. It was that fast. The stars just aligned. But that's the thing. You just don't know. And if you don't know in your career, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that's totally okay. Like, I didn't know ever. I still don't know. Things are happening around the corner, and you can't have eyes everywhere. You can only just focus on the thing you're doing today, the assignment you're doing, how you're treating the people around you, and just trust you'll get where you need to go.
An interesting question here. How is your life story viewed in Vietnam? How do you think this book will be viewed by people in Vietnam?
I do hope and pray that it does get translated.
Will you go out there and talk if the opportunity presents itself?
My Vietnamese is not as good as my English, so it would be rough. I would need like some help, but the Vietnamese American community is responding in droves, and I'm loving that. And the Vietnam vets are responding, and then I'm getting emails. Like just yesterday, I got a lady who emailed me newspaper clippings of when a Vietnamese family came to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and she and her family sponsored that family, and they're still in touch to this day. And it was just so touching to me because that's what America is about. These are the stories that we don't know what our neighbors have done for other communities, and that like we do bond together and we do help each other. And like as our sponsor family said, it doesn't take a lot. You just give a little. You give what you have. And it just reminds you that we can do more. We really can. You
wrote about your sponsor family in Oregon, correct? Mm-hmm. And just explain. So your mom was working for, was it Holt International? Yep. And said, we're refugees. Yeah. Can we come?
Right.
And addressed to no one.
Right.
Except for the organization.
Holt. Right, exactly. Like you're just writing to McDonald's and you're like, hi, can you help us? And by the way, Raj, your recall of the book is insane. Like you remember the details better than I do.
Well, because I really enjoyed it.
Well, I appreciate it. You've retained it too, which is amazing. So my mom had worked for Holt International Children's Services in Vietnam, an adoption agency. And when they were on the refugee camp in Malaysia, she just wrote a general letter, hoping it was going to arrive at the offices in America and that someone would read it and say, yes, we will sponsor you. And it was Winnell and Dawn Ware. We actually brought them to New York last fall. They're both in their 80s now. They travel everywhere with their little dog, Minnie. And they came to the Today Show on an insane day to be at the Today Show. Coldplay was there.
Oh my gosh.
The entire cast of Dateline was there because we were introducing a new Dateline correspondent. I forget who the actors were, but they just had a whole very blitz like Hollywood experience. And they were like, wow, we're from a town of 1,500 people and we never thought we'd be in New York, let alone getting this VIP tour, meeting all the Today Show anchors, and obviously they're Today Show fans.
Yeah.
So I was so delighted to be able to give them a glimpse into this is what you made possible. Like you not answering, if you had never answered that letter, if you hadn't taken that letter and run to the director and said, we got to help this family. And then everybody banded together, a Lutheran church, a Methodist church. They found clothes, they found an apartment. They just got us situated in Eugene, Oregon, track and field capital of the USA. And
with a huge Vietnamese community there.
Yeah, right. Nobody. And they also found fish sauce somehow, which was remarkable in Oregon in 1980. Because there's no Amazon Fresh, there's no Instacart. I still to this day have no idea how they tracked down fish sauce, but that's like a staple in Vietnamese cooking, and they found it for us.
It's very sweet. It's a very sweet story. A couple more questions before we wrap it up. Whether it's 2 years from now, 12 years from now, 22 years from now, whatever the timetable is, and you leave television for whatever reason, what would you like to do?
I'm tired.
What would you like to do?
So here's my dream. My dream is that my 3 daughters go into business together. That somehow they are entrepreneurial and they develop some sort of company, create jobs, some sort of service. This is my dream. And then we all live in a compound, like with a shared backyard or something like that. And I can just be like the momager, helper, assistant, household CEO. That's the dream. Because I have an only child. You have 2. They could be at, 2 different corners of the earth. How do you help them? Like, I only know having my parents around, thank God, and like all that it's enabled me to do. And I want to be able to do that for them because it's hard. It is hard to raise a family and pursue a job that you love. So I hope that I can give back to them the way my parents have to me.
So similar to what your parents are doing for you all now, and that I've known you for so long that they've been doing for your kids. They've been just there helping you with this process.
Right. And I didn't write this, and I kind of wish I had written an epilogue, because some of the book is about like, basically we came here, we had the American dream. My parents bought a home, paid it off within like no time at all. This is when interest rates were like 15% in the 80s, and they owned their house outright in Santa Rosa. And then we lost it all in 2000, just as I was starting my career. And what ended up happening is that entire neighborhood in 2017, the Tubbs fire and the Wine Country fires, that entire neighborhood got burnt down. So this house that kind of symbolized the American dream and was a real thorn in my side in terms of like how I felt like we had kind of lost a lot. What if my parents had been living there? What if they had been there when the fires happened? You kind of just never know where life is going to take you, but ultimately they're here, they're with me, they're healthy, and I'm happy for that. So, I just think it's kind of symbolic of sometimes we mourn for something, but it's better that we let it go.
Yeah, I know your in-laws were impacted.
Yes, they did lose their house.
Well, there. We're going to wrap it up now. So you have a dinner. We have some great food here, but do you still go to KFC?
Oh my God. My meal, they don't have the strawberry shortcake anymore. It's devastating. My go-to meal at KFC growing up, 2 crispy drumsticks, buttermilk biscuit, corn on the cob, and a strawberry parfait. That was my go-to.
And this was remind me, this was once a week?
Yeah. Every week after school before going to gifted and talented education, my mom would drive me and she'd give me a box and I'd be eating it in the car. And then I would go and do whatever you do at Gate, build things with toothpicks. But yeah, you know what? I have to say, and this is one of my little things, my bully pulpits, I feel like food isn't the same as it was when we were kids. It doesn't taste the same. The ingredients are different. So I don't eat there as much as I used to. And I think it's because they've changed the ingredients.
There's your next investigation on the Today Show.
Now it's Bonchon chicken. Bonchon, twice fried Korean fried chicken. That's good.
The book's great. It's really fun. It's thoughtful. It's profound in many ways. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being back home. We wish you were still living here, but we love to see you on the network level. Ladies and gentlemen, Vicky Nguyen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. And can we please also recognize the amazing moderation? Raj is sort of a regular here at the Commonwealth, and I think you can see why they love him in the club, because he can take any topic, he can make anybody interesting. He asks such thoughtful, incisive questions, and an hour just flies by with Raj. He is the penultimate professional, and I am so grateful that you were the person to kick off this boat baby tour for me. It is like such a full circle moment for me, so thank you so much.
You're very sweet. Thank you so much. And as Vicky was just showering with praise, I forgot the name of the wonderful restaurant that's catering food for everyone outside at no charge as you chat with Vicky and get your book signed. And if someone can bring me that name, because I would really like to give him some...
Chang Ho.
Thank you so much. Oh, right there.
Oh, Teho. Okay.
Thank you so much. They're from Oakland. They have some amazing food, so please enjoy it. And thanks to Vicky for being here. Congratulations on the book. And if you'd like to support the Commonwealth Club, commonwealthclub.org. Have a great evening.